Welcome back! My name's Jack, the snack that smiles back. If you're here, you're joining me to find out who is the a-holes today. But enough dibbler-dabbler, let's get started on the stories. This story by Dimension Same. Am I the a-hole for yelling at my parents that their polyamory fricked up my childhood? I believe it started when I was around 6 years old. My parents often had friends over in the house. I didn't know they were polyamorous, of course. One day, I was outside playing, got hurt, and when I ran inside, caught my parents making out with some random guy. They told me they have other adults that they love, and it's a completely normal thing. Me, being a child, just accepted that. They gave up being secretive, and their partners would constantly be around, even joining on outings. I remember that on my 10th birthday, they invited 3 of their partners, one who I'd never seen before, and for the rest of the day, my parents just withdrew from my party and hung out with them. I never saw them doing anything explicit again, but they would kiss their partners, hug them, make flirty comments, something that would be normal between parents, but with many more people. Sometimes I came home from school and my parents were gone, and there was some random adult in our house. Some of them seemed surprised that my parents even had a child. I always hated it, but since my parents had told me this was normal, I assumed many adults probably did similar things and that it's just an adult thing all kids hate. Later they had less partners and eventually seemed to stop. Not that I'd know for sure because I moved out when I hit 17. I didn't think about it anymore. A year ago, I started therapy, other reasons. As usual, the topic of my upbringing came up, and it brought back many feelings I wasn't aware of. I realized that although my parents were always good to me, I had never really felt close to any of them, and still have a lot of resentment that they made me feel like I had to compete for my parents' attention with random strangers. A while ago, I visited them, and they told me they are going to take part in a documentary about polyamorous families and that the producers would like to include interviews with the children. So, they would love if I could agree and tell everyone that polyamory doesn't mess kids up. All my resentment bubbled up, and I said that I cannot agree because I would not be able to say anything positive. My parents looked shocked. I had never brought this up before, and asked why. And I unloaded all that I always felt pushed aside. We barely had any family time without strangers intruding. It turned into an argument, and I became loud and yelled that the truth is it did frick me up, and they shouldn't have had a child if their number one priority was fricking the whole world. My mother cried, and my father said I should probably leave. So I left and was shaken up for the rest of the week, but also felt regret because I've never made my mum cry before. Later, my father sent me a message that was like, "We are sorry you feel that way. We can have a calm discussion about this soon." Even though I tried to, it's like I can't reply. This argument brought something very emotional up in me. Am I the a-hole for hurting my parents over this? Especially since I have never brought it up before. Okay, firstly, we are sorry you feel that way. That is not them apologizing, that's just them acknowledging that you feel upset. Obviously, this is just off a text, but it clearly reads out that they don't agree with how you feel, but they acknowledge it at least. Which, considering the whole topic of the discussion was proving whether or not polyamory is bad for children, it doesn't seem like they're really clear-headed about this. Also, we should consider that this is a case basis. Meaning we can't justify that polyamory is bad for children in general just because of this one person's experience. I think it's valid and true that clearly polyamory was not good for these parents to be doing when raising this child, but I'd have to argue it's not so much the existence of polyamory in the family that is the issue, but more so the parents' lack of ability to prioritize their child. I mean, come on, taking 3 other adults to your kid's birthday party? That's just inappropriate. Overall, I don't think you're the a-hole. You expressed what you've been feeling for years. You are very valid to feel this way. This doesn't sound like polyamory either. It sounds like swinging. From my understanding, polyamory is based on relationships, not swinging. Notice no one mentioned that. Yeah, that's exactly what it sounds like. They're using the term polyamory wrong. If you're polyamorous, you're in a close relationship. There's one couple in my polycule who have a kid. We were all friends before they joined. And their kid knows everyone in the polycule as their aunt or uncle. We're not unfamiliar strangers that have no clue that the two of them have a kid. They're just horny. If they actually were, they'd actually have the kid be introduced to the adults and be a part of their life. Of course, giving the kid space and time to adjust to these sort of introductions of people coming to the family. But sadly, these parents didn't prioritize that, and now they're paying the price. This story by LadyAshara. Am I the a-hole for yelling at my neighbor because she called CPS on my husband? A little background. I, 32 female, live with my husband, 33 male, and our 2 children, Jake, 6 male, and Amy, 3 female. A young couple, probably in their early 20s, are our next-door neighbors. 2 weeks back, my husband took Jake and Amy to a park nearby. Ideally, I would have gone too, as it's easier to manage the kids when we're both there, but I had important office work that day, and husband had a day off. Jake wanted us to use the swing, but husband forbade it since he was alone with the 2 of them and said that they'd just walk around. Sometime later, Amy got a pebble in her shoe or something, and he sat her down on a bench to check it. He specifically asked Jake to stay beside him, but Jake, I guess, really wanted to swing, and seeing his dad's attention elsewhere, decided to run for it. He was trying to go too fast, lost his balance, and fell. All this happened in a matter of seconds. That was it. They came back home, we talked to Jake about it and told him why he was wrong, and we all moved the frick on. Imagine our surprise when Child Protection Services, or the equivalent to CPS in our country, we don't live in the US, pulls up at our door and says that they've been given reports about how my husband was a negligent parent and how he put Jake's life in danger. They mentioned the park incident where, according to their version, my husband totally forgot about Jake, and that's led to Jake seriously hurting himself. There were no serious injuries. He had minor scratches on his hands and knees. Obviously, they did not find anything wrong. Didn't tell us about the identity of the reporter, though. Husband mentioned that our neighbors were present that day in the park, and later, when I asked, the woman confessed. She even went on to say that my husband was almost abusive, and that she was just looking out for Jake. Why do I believe my husband's version and not hers? Well, firstly, he's my husband and I trust him, and also because Jake confessed he disobeyed his dad. Oh, getting your kid to confess the truth without fear, that's a good son. That and also good parenting, mostly. I was super mad at this, and I generally don't get that angry, but she was accusing my husband of being abusive, and she called CPS on him. I yelled at her that she did not know smack about anything, and she was just trivializing abuse and parent negligence. She cried, and I told her to frick off. Her boyfriend thinks that she was just mistaken, and I should forgive mistakes. But am I the a-hole? Nata. That type of mistake could destroy family lives. A child running off while a parent is distracted by another parent is normal behavior. That neighbor needed to mind her own damn business. Now, if true abuse or negligence was going, I would support it. But a kid being a kid? Good on you for standing up for that one. Oh, nothing worse than neighborhood busybodies measuring the world with their personal metric. Ask Freakout Franny how she'd feel if you called the cops to report how abusive her husband is the next time they get into an argument. I mean, they're shouting, so obviously that means he's beating her within an inch of her life, right? No? Oops, just a mistake. Hopefully they aren't parents. I disagree. Hopefully they do become parents and realize how stupid they were to do this. Well, specifically her, not they. That type of mistake. Let me quibble just a bit with that word. Watching a 6-year-old bolt away from their parents at a moment's distraction is typical kid behavior. A 6-year-old falling and getting a little bloody is basically a normal day in the life. One doesn't mistake normal behavior for abuse. Neighbor had already made up her mind about OP and her family, maybe a disagreement over politics, and read into the situation things that weren't there. She even doubled down on the abuse accusation, although I'm not exactly sure what almost abusive means. Is that similar to being a little bit pregnant? The mistake excuse came from the boyfriend who was trying to put the best face on the incident instead of simply apologizing. But to be fair, he doesn't need to apologize at all. It's her, the girlfriend, who needs to apologize. Let's also point out the logical fallacy in almost abusive. It implies, if anything, that she was just suspicious, and wasn't even completely herself certain that it was actual abuse going on. So you were self-assured enough to contact people about it, but not assured enough to say sorry for when you were wrong. Honestly, if she thinks that's abuse, I fear for any kids in her future. She is going to keep them locked away to have no experiences in life that could cause the slightest of harm. Overall, you're not the a-hole. You have every right to snap back at this lady.
Hey, just noticing you're quite a bit in the video and you haven't liked it yet. Could you maybe do that for just please? Thanks. Cheers.
This story by EmptySuitKiss. Would I be the a-hole if I took my girlfriend's parents to small claims court? Around the start of August, I was finally allowed back around my girlfriends due to COVID restrictions easing off. As always, their dog, which is a Cocker Spaniel, ran up to greet me, even after not having seen me for well over 3 months. Everything was perfectly fine, and he showed no signs of aggression. Fast forward a few hours, and we're in the kitchen cooking some food. The dog is in there too, just relaxing, and I have been petting him on and off while waiting for the food to cook. I go to pet him again, and he makes a low growling, so I back off and go back to the food. Around 5 minutes later, I decide to try and pet him again. This time, however, he jumps forward and bites and latches onto my wrist. I jump back and he comes with me, hanging from my arm. I manage to get him loose and there are 2 decent-sized holes in my wrist. Needless to say, we have to go to the hospital to get it looked at, cleaned, stitched up, etc. Now, here's where the problem is. I work in a warehouse, which means 8 hours a day of manual handling, picking beers, wines, and spirits amongst other things. With the holes in my wrist, I can't work, and the hospital signs me off for 10 days. My most recent payslip has now come in, and due to being in my probation, I've only been given statutory sick pay for the time off, meaning I've lost over half of what I would normally get paid for a month's work. I understand that the dog bite was completely an accident, but it's also not the first time he's bitten someone. Never as bad as my bite, though. So, would I be the a-hole if I took my girlfriend's parents to small claims court for compensation for the lost wages? I mean, you could possibly get some money, but definitely lose your girlfriend. You would be the a-hole, and probably single as well. The dog gave you a very clear warning sign, and you went back to petting him anyway. Look up petting consent videos so you don't make the mistake in the future. Well-trained dogs do not bite. The real a-holes here are the girlfriend's parents, for not training their dog properly, even after it had bitten someone else. You would be the a-hole. You tried to pet a dog after it told you it didn't want to be pet. This was your fault. Here's a tip. Do not reach for a dog, ever. They will come to you if they want to be pet. There is zero reason to reach out. You will betar if you don't have a frank conversation with them first, asking them to cover your medical bills. If they refuse, then you can take them to small claims. But there's no reason that small claims should be your first stop when it comes to your girlfriend's family. Yet, as others have pointed out, the dog bite was your fault. Also, it sounds as if you only lost the wages because you were on probation and didn't have paid sick time as a result. How is it her parents' fault that you were on probation at work? I'm gonna personally side with a bit of everyone sucks here, as I do agree with everyone here saying that it's technically his fault for getting bitten. But it's also the parents' fault for having such a dangerous dog in the house around people. Morally, I don't think he should take them to small claims court over this issue, but legally, I know he'll have a strong case. So it really comes down to that. Are you willing to risk your relationship with your partner to get a bit of pay? Or could you possibly speak to her parents about this issue and ask for some sort of help or compensation during these times? At least until you're somewhat better on your feet with your financial situation. Assuming her parents aren't completely always on the defensive about these kind of things, they should be willing to help you out. I wouldn't bring up the fact you take them to small claims court though. They'd probably just kick you out straight away. What do you think, dear listener? Do you think he should get them a claim, or should he just shut his mouth? I like reading some interesting points you make in the comments, so please leave one down below.
Hello. That does us for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. If you're looking at my face right now, that means you liked this video. So all I appreciate is if you would like the video back. Because if you like it, then I'll like you for liking the video, and then I could make more stuff for you to like that you can like, and it'll be just a constant cycle of never-ending pain and suffering. So don't do it alone, suffer with me. I don't know where I was going with that. If you haven't subscribed but you want to see some more content, then please, what are you waiting for? Click that notification bell so you're always updated on the latest content. And hey, why not check out some other videos while you're here? But anyway, that does me for today. Thank you again for watching. You're an amazing person. I love rambling at you, and I look forward to you staring at me beyond the abyss again soon. I can't close well. Don't at me, okay? My name's been Jack. Bye-bye. You're amazing. See ya!